Time management. All right, so last year I think this was like a 152 slide section. I've carved it way down. I think we're down to about 20 slides or less here, so much, much tighter. And time management, you know, I think that's like a very 2014 type of label to put on it, although we're going to keep saying time management, I'm sure. You know, it sort of evolved into self-management for a little while, and then we were talking about energy management. That's been the thing I've tried to use lately as well, managing my energy. I can't manage time. The clock is ticking. I can only manage my energy levels within that time frame. And energy levels have been depleted a little bit, to say the least, because a lot of us, well, we kind of feel like the Bank of Canada has steamrolled over the market in particular recently. And our number one challenge, you know, is time management, apparently, because every time I put a survey out, again and again and again, the number one challenge people talk about, time management. So here it is. Here's the whole thing. Time is a flat circle. It's a circle. Thank you. Oh, I probably got to do better than that. I didn't have the camera on me, but when I did that. Okay, we'll do a little better than that. So if you're not a True Detective fan, you kind of didn't get that one. More seriously, okay, our time is invested. And I think 2023 is largely going to be a year of the basics. So what are you doing with your time? First and foremost, make sure you're well rested, right? I'm not going to go on a diatribe about naps, don't worry. But make sure you're well rested. And when I say that, I recently got this Oura ring, O-U-R-A, Oura.com. And it tracks all kinds of things, heart rate variability, body temperature, heart rate. It tracks your steps. It tracks all kinds of things. It's kind of amazing. It also tracks your sleep. And here's the crazy thing. For a guy who spends a lot of time talking about sleep and the importance of it, and get the sleep mask, and you have the earplugs in the hotel, and make sure you wear your socks when you first go to bed, but just wear ankle socks because if your feet a little bit warmer, you fall asleep faster, but then you can sort of slide them off midway through the night easily, blah, blah, blah. Turns out the ring is telling me my sleep is crap. I have horrible sleep. My sleep sometimes, instead of a nice blue line of solid rest, it looks like somebody was sending Morse code, or it was like machine gun fire. Like I'm waking up repeatedly through the night. So trying to dial all that in and figure that out has become a lot more important for me. I thought I had it figured out, but I wasn't actually measuring it or tracking it properly. So thanks, Corey, for the tip on the ring. It's been about a year, and all I really know now is just how poorly I tend to sleep 3 or 4 nights out of 7. And that's something I got to keep working on, because the rest matters. It absolutely does, as does the fuel. Right? How are you fueling yourself? I've talked to so many brokers over the years who've said to me, oh, I just can't slow down to like eat properly. Like I'm drive-through guy. I'm constantly a drive-through guy. I'm on the road, I'm out, I'm seeing people, I'm doing all these different things, drive-through, drive-through, drive-through. And that's not proper fuel. I mean, what you're feeding yourself is powering your brain. You want to actually fuel yourself with some proper fuel. When it comes right down to it, right? Healthy food. And motivation. Where is your motivation? That's been another big one over the past year. I've heard from a lot of brokers saying to me, man, I'm just done. Like, I'm just not feeling it. I don't have the motivation to spring out of bed. I don't know if it's age. I don't know if it's just been this whole pandemic thing. I don't know if I'm just exhausted from like the incredible amount of volume I had to process for the past couple of years. But my motivation is just flagging, it's failing. As I say, I think the key is being as purposeful with your time as possible. And again, you know, the book I would suggest is Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. Phenomenal book, and it really highlights the importance of rest and of quality sleep in your life. And I try to be as purposeful as I can now with an actual bedtime, with a cutoff time, where that's it. No more screens, no more anything, no more food. You know, just everything shuts down, and I'm trying to do a better job of preparing myself. I'm trying to be intentional with what I'm actually ingesting. I have to actually be extra careful, it seems, over the past 6 months or so in particular. I just seem to be developing that much more sensitive of a gut, which sucks, but it is what it is. And I have to be very, very intentional with taking the time to prepare the proper food. I can't do the fast food thing. It's not even an option for me. There's nothing fast about it other than how fast okay, you get the idea. And be ruthless with your time. Be ruthless with your time. And what I'm really getting at today with this slide is, are you actually motivated to go do this thing that you've said you're going to do? Do you really want to go do it at all? If there's no motivation to go do the thing, why are you locking into a commitment to do the thing? I guarantee most of you could open your calendars right now and you could pick 3 things next week, at least 3 things next week, meetings, whatever they are, they're in your calendar, that you should cancel. You should cancel them and reclaim that time for yourself and do something purposeful with that time. Do something intentional. You've got to be ruthless with your time. And I think a lot of us have learned that lesson, but as everything started to open back up and the invites start pouring in to come to this thing, to go to that thing, really? And I think a lot of us are pausing and saying, do I really want to get back on that golf tournament bandwagon where I go to 32 different golf tournaments? I don't know. Was that really serving me? Was it serving me financially? Was it serving me physically, mentally? Was I really getting anything out of that? I don't know. So I would say, open your calendar, have a look, and almost guaranteed there's going to be at least 3 different appointments next week you could cancel. They're not that important. They're just not. And set an end time. Again, who's the audience today? The audience are people who have an established business. Set a cutoff time where you will stop and then stick to it. That's the toughest thing. It's easy to pick the time of day you're going to stop, but you need to stick to it. And look, here's the reality, right? If you don't quit work for someone special, if you have someone special in your life, if you're not quitting work at some certain specific time for that person, then that someone special is going to quit you. That's the way that's going to wind up. And look, it's not even about whether you have someone special or not. You need to create the space for someone special to come in to your life potentially, right? Sounds like I'm probably giving myself like a self-talk thing here right now. But in all seriousness, you have to set a quitting time. Dustin, you have to set a quitting, we all need to put a quitting time in place. And what are relationships? Relationships are really a balance of accounts, right? There's deposits and there's withdrawals. And how much time are you depositing into that relationship versus the amount of time you're withdrawing from it? All interpersonal relationships, I don't just mean family relationships and personal relationships, business relationships are the same thing, right? There's a balance of accounts. Number one way to get referrals, give referrals. You're making deposits into the referral account for these people. Those are going to come back, hopefully with interest, right? And a couple rituals of freedom that I like to share with you guys. Update your voicemail daily at 5 p.m. Update it daily at the end of the day, right? It's Monday, January 16th, and you've reached the confidential voicemail of. That would be my voicemail update today at 5. And what does it say? It says, I was in the office, and I will be back, but I won't be back on Saturday, and I won't be back on Sunday. I'll be back on Monday. That's when I'm back in the office. You've reached the confidential voicemail of Dustin Woodhouse. I will return your call as soon as possible. If the matter is urgent, please send me a text message, right? If the matter is urgent, send me a text. My ringer is off all weekend. I do not have my ringer on. I don't need to, and neither do you. We're all looking at our phone every 3 seconds anyways, every 3 seconds to 3 minutes. It's crazy, right? It's crazy when you really think about it. But setting that intention, setting that voicemail, gives you permission to not have your ringer on, to not be staring at your phone, and to not answer every incoming call all weekend. You know they're going to get a message that lets them know you're back on Monday. It's critical, in my opinion, to take these steps once you've hit that established level of business. And like I say, walk away and put the phone down. Put the phone down. I know it's hard. I mean, I can't even really go for a ride anymore without my phone, although what I do tend to do is I stick my phone, notifications off, sound off, I stick my phone into my backpack, it's sealed up, and it's not in my pocket. I'm not pulling it out every time I stop for a shot of water or whatever. So I can go for a 3-hour ride and that phone maybe comes out of my pack once or twice. I mean, it's in my pack because, well, Strava, so that's part of why it's in my pack. But it's also in my pack because, well, it's also my camera. So if I get to the viewpoint that I'm pedaling to or whatever and I want to take some shots, it comes out. But I'll admit, I've been at the top of an incredibly beautiful vista, and I pulled my phone out to take a camera, but then I just automatically double-checked email, and oh, I'm into a situation. And now it's a Saturday afternoon, and you're standing in the middle of this beautiful mountaintop lake environment, and you're messaging a client. Like, seriously? But that's the reality, right? It is very hard to walk away from our phones at this point. But do what you can to set yourself up for success. And that includes an autoresponder on your email, right? I mean, your reward for being so uptight and being so on with emails all week long is you get a weekend away from your email, or at least a few hours at a time away from your weekend. Because again, at least if somebody sends you an email and they get that auto response, they know the documents they just sent hit your inbox. We've all had that phone call, text, DM, email, WhatsApp within 3 minutes of one another or less saying, hey, I just emailed you my documents, wanted to make sure you got them. All of that could have been headed off with a simple autoresponder, right? It's a basic piece. Most of you have that, by the way, because I know an awful lot of you are subscribed to the Be the Better Broker blog on Sundays, and it just makes me smile when I get this wave of like 350, 400 out-of-office responses. I mean, it's kind of a pain in the butt to delete them all, and make sure there isn't like a real email wedged somewhere in there. But it's awesome to see, because I can tell you 3-4 years ago, there was at least 2,500 people on that email list, and I would get maybe 2 or 3 autoresponders on a weekend. Nobody was using autoresponders 3, 4, 5 years ago. It just wasn't a thing. Now there's almost 4,000 people on there, but I get, as I say, hundreds of autoresponders, and I think that's awesome. And again, as I said to the rookies yesterday, no autoresponder for you. No voicemail that says you're out of the office, so you'll be back on Monday. No, 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 no. You don't get to do that when you're coming up. But you guys are up. You're established. Treat yourself, all right? Treat yourself. And your calendar should not look like this anymore. This was kind of an epiphany for me. I looked at this slide and I thought, I should create a new updated version of this, because I've used this slide for a few years. And then I thought, hang on, why does my life even look like that? Why am I not batching things together a lot more snugly? And a lot of ladies will be a lot more on point with this, because it's a little more of a thing to become Zoom ready for you guys than it is for me. You know, my hair doesn't take too long to do in the morning. I'm pretty much Zoom ready within 3 minutes of waking up. And I can jump on a Zoom at any time of the day, whenever anybody wants, randomly. But if you've got hair that you have to actually do something with, and the whole makeup thing and everything else, and you need to be Zoom ready, as we say, then why would you want to have Zoom meetings scattered all over your week? You wouldn't. You might want to batch your Zoom meetings into 1, 2, or 3 days a week as tightly as possible and just get through them all. And you should be batching your underwriting. So that should be a time block if you're making the outbound calls, which again, if you're well established and you've got volume coming in and your phone is ringing like crazy and the warm referrals are pouring in, you don't need to worry as much about making outbound calls. We'll touch a little bit more on that coming up. But either way, whatever activities you're doing, try and block them together. So you're shifting into that mental gear of outbound calls. Now you're shifting into that mental gear of underwriting your files, the 3 or 4 files that are in front of you that you need to submit today, that half day's work. I got to get through that in the next 2 hours. That's what I'm focused on. And then, oh, I've got 3 Zoom meetings. I better, put my face on, get my hair ready, and get the lighting dialed in, and away we go. batch things. And this is what I hope my actual calendar starts to look like. There can be a whole bunch of crazy color combos in all that white space. That's fine. But I mean, you may also want to ask yourself, why not a 4-day week? Why not a 4-day week? Why am I not blocking off 3 days a week and working 4? And there are veterans in this industry who I know who've accomplished this. And kudos to you. That's phenomenal. A whole year of 4-day work weeks, one of you I know achieved last year. That's brilliant, right? And by the way, when it was a long weekend, it was a 3-day work week. I thought that was pretty remarkable. So as I say, for the veterans, never turn your phone on the weekend. Take a step back. You've made it to 30,000 feet, 50,000 feet, space orbit, whatever level you were trying to get to, you've got there. Level off, enjoy the flight, put it on autopilot once in a while. It will all be there tomorrow. It will be. And if it's not, you've got the skills, right? You can handle the rejection. You can pick up the phone. You can work. You've got a huge database you can work. We're going to talk about eBlast. You've got eBlast you can send out that'll result, as one person just mentioned to me this morning, they sent an eBlast out, 30 clients responded, 30 clients booked meetings from one email. One email. Nice, simple email. So this little book cocktail, these 3 books, I've had this slide in a few different presentations. I strongly recommend you, if you're into audiobooks in particular, to download these 3 books. And I have not reinvested the time lately to do this, but I want to, right after I get that colonoscopy, I guess. I want to do what I did about 4 or 5 years ago now. I went through these 3 books, a couple chapters at a time, cycling through all 3 of them. So I've mentioned the one, Why We Sleep. The other one, Inner Engineering by Sadhguru, talks a lot about diet and the connection to your gut and your brain and all that kind of stuff. And it struck me at first as maybe like, I don't know, maybe this is like a little too woo-woo for me. I don't know if I want to read this book. And once I got into the book, I was like, wow, thank you, Cheryl. Thank you so much for giving me this book. It was very, very powerful. And as I say, I would do a couple chapters of it, and then I'd do a couple chapters of the PhD scientist talking about why we sleep. And then I would do a couple chapters of Greg McKeown talking about essentialism, which is really what matters. What matters? And the mix of those, I had a coaching call with an individual, and he and I both said at the end of it, holy smokes, that was like a TED Talk. We should have recorded that. And it was all born out of these 3 books. It was just what you capture, the essence of those 3 books, I think is important for somebody who's operating at a high level. It really hits on everything I've been talking about around the time management piece.